Welcome back to the Palmcast. I am your host, Stephen Willis, on this magical mystery tour. I do want to tell you about Corey Burton coming in here. He's going to tell us all about, I don't know, generic football stuff. That's just what he does. He's an assistant coach at Hillwood High School. He hosts the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast with Israel Troop. He does coaching chat. Is there a podcast you don't do, Corey?
At this point, I don't know, because I do the Palmcast occasionally. I do Around the SEC, which is an offshoot of the Palmcast, I guess a spinoff, you could say. I do Illegal Motion, Coaching Chatter, and my main show is Believe in Georgia Dogs. So, yeah, I'm all over the place, man. And I teach and coach, too, if you believe that.
Yeah, the reason we got you on the show is the other day I did a Palmcast and was just thinking out loud about questions that each team has. And it just dawned me, look, we need to get somebody in here to have another perspective on that, and I hope you can help us out with that. And the main thing, the main thing we're talking about is like Alabama. Bryce Young, there was no mop up behind Mac Jones last year. They weren't used like traditional Alabama quarterbacks. They're losing Najee Harris. They're losing the Heisman winner. They're losing Jalen Waddle. They're losing two on the offensive line. This has the potential to be one of those hiccup years.
It could be, especially with Texas A&M surging a little bit, which they have some questions of their own at the quarterback position, and they had a huge transfer portal entry a few weeks ago. So they've got some questions themselves, but you get a Western division that, a lot of teams are surging forward. I don't know who's going to come out of that mix. What does Ole Miss have to do? What kind of pressure do they put on Alabama? But I think the biggest loss, you listed a lot of names, right? But the biggest name that they lost was Sarkisian, because people don't realize, with all the problems that he had as a head coach at USC with his alcohol abuse and things like that, he did go through rehab, but the dude is a brilliant offensive mind. Outside of all of that, he's a great play designer. He knows how to get the ball to his playmakers in space and do so creatively. He knows how to build a sequence of plays, and that just doesn't come along very often. And you replace him with a guy that, I don't know, went on full tilt with the Houston Texans and traded DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of chips and some sunflower seeds and a bag of Gatorade. Then also just completely mismanaged that roster to the point where they went from one of the top teams, perennial playoff team, to, they're going to be perennially picking in the top five. So, you get a guy like that who I question his judgment. I mean, he's had a good football mind, Bill O'Brien. I mean, he was successful as a coordinator in New England, which I don't know if that's him or if that's just Brady and the system there, but he had a little bit of success at Penn State that leveraged him back to the NFL as a head coach. So, to be honest with you, I have no idea what to expect. You lose two big offensive linemen, Landon Dickerson and Alex Leatherwood, both, I think, first and second round picks respectively. So you lose those two guys, especially your center. When you lose your center, that's like losing the quarterback of the offensive line. So they're going to have some holes to fill. Defensively, they lose Christian Barrymore on the defensive line. So, and Patrick Surtain on the back end. So I don't know what this Alabama team is going to look like. Of course, they've recruited extremely well. John Mechie III is going to be the next guy in line. Is he as good as Devontae Smith? We don't know. Is he as good as Jalen Waddle? I don't know. I mean, Jalen Waddle is more talented than Devontae Smith, in my opinion. And that's what's scary about it. Najee Harris, you lose him. What do they have behind him? I don't know. It remains to be seen. So I think the tall order is going to be, can Bill O'Brien figure that out and put them in the best position to win? Can he develop Bryce Young the way Sarkisian developed Tua and developed Mac Jones? That remains to be seen as well. So a lot of question marks with Alabama, but they're extremely talented and likely the favorites to win the division again. But don't count out Ole Miss. Don't count out Texas A&M. Don't count out Auburn. And definitely don't count out LSU. They've had some changes in philosophy.
Again?
Skip Peets, I think, was a great hire for Ed Orgeron. It'll be remained as, it's a great hire in theory. I think they had a pretty good successful spring. We'll see how that translates. I think Max Johnson is going to end up being their starting quarterback with TJ Finley transferring. Where does TJ Finley end up? I've heard Auburn. So that could be a factor that could go against Alabama.
Well, he might be out Auburn, but Texas makes unreal sense for that kid
It really does.
to go under Sark and do
He
all
should.
that. Yeah, I mean, it
He
makes
should if I were him.
yeah.
He's got an open lane to start, a great offensive system, a university that's just dying to get back to prominence, and I think they can do so under Sarkisian.
Yeah, they think they're entitled to prominence, but they're probably
They haven't
20
earned
years. Yeah, they haven't earned it at this point.
I think they have a chance if the chips fall right. I think they have a chance to earn their way back in.
The next question I have is Emory Jones and how Dan Mullins will use him. There is a trap with how dynamic they were last year with Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney and Kyle Trask to try and run that system again. And if you do that with his passings, it's not setting Emory Jones up for success. I think the way that you need to use him is real similar to the way Dan Mullen used Chris Relf, the way Dan Mullen used Nick Fitzgerald. They're not exactly polished passers, but you put them in the right position.
Absolutely. If they try to run last year's system, they're dead. They're dead in the water. They're going to have a losing record. They may not even make a bowl game if they try to do what they did last year with that whole crew. They're going to look totally different, and they're going to have to win totally different. If they want to have a chance at competing in the East, much less competing for a bowl game, they've got to figure out. He's got to dig deep into his. I didn't have a real quarterback at Mississippi State playbook. And they're going to have to do a lot of zone read. They're going to have to do a lot of option. They can do some short RPO pre-snap stuff, but they're going to have to get creative, and they're going to have to really rely on the run game, which is something that Florida hasn't done extremely well. They've been more of a passing team. They've been more predicated through the air with the quarterbacks that they've had. Now they're back to a Mississippi State situation with, like you said, Nick Fitzgerald and Chris Relf, where they have more talented guys than those rosters had, so they have a lot more potential. Now they've just got to tap into that and basically change their whole system up.
Yeah, and they're absolutely hoping that Emory Jones develops and that Nick Fitzgerald, Chris Relf system turns into a Dak Prescott system.
Yeah, and it very well could.
Yeah, but you need to start at that baseline level, I believe, and you need to work up to where he is. You don't need to assume that he's already there.
No, I mean, and he's had years in Mullins' offense, so he knows the passing side of it. He knows some of the things that they've done in years past, so that they can actually kind of dive into it a little bit, maybe not full bore like they did with Trask or even Felipe Franks, but they could probably dabble into it a little bit because he does know it and he is familiar with it. But they're going to have to really focus on quarterback runs and just the run game in general. So for Florida to be successful, that's what they got to do.
Yeah, and switching up, I guess 75 up to Atlanta, Athens, that area. Will Kirby Smart take his foot off the throat of the offense and just turn them loose and be willing to give up 24 points instead of 14?
He has to. I mean, adapt or die, right? He has the weapons all around. Even without George Pickens, you still have a ton of weapons. The kid that was previously committed to Ole Miss had a dynamic spring game. He had 7 catches for over 100 yards in the spring game. Became a legitimate weapon. Just fell into the laps of the Georgia Bulldogs and was a complete fluke because he was gung ho Ole Miss, and then I guess he decommitted. He sat out his senior season, the COVID year, and then he early enrolled and has just been electric since. So if Kirby Smart doesn't take his foot off the throat of the offense, then you're going to see Florida probably win the East again. But he's got to take advantage. He's finally got a legitimate quarterback in JT Daniels, and he's got 2 legitimate backups in Brock Vandagriff and Carson Beck, and he's got Gunnar Stockton coming down the pike in 2022. So he's going to have a run of really talented quarterbacks again. He's got a deep backfield, and he's finally improving his recruiting at the wide receiver spot. So that tells me all those clues tell me, and even at the tight end position, Brock Bowers is going to be – Brock Bowers may end up being better than Darnell Washington, believe it or not. But you have a NBA-type player at tight end. I mean, why not take advantage of some of those matchup nightmares? You got an athletic guy in Brock Bowers. You're going to have a lot of probably 12 and 22 personnel with the backs that Georgia has and the tight ends. you don't have one of those big, tall jump ball playmakers like George Pickens was, but you have some fast guys. You have Kears Jackson, you have Arian Smith, Marcus Roseme St. Jack, or Jack Saint, I'm sorry, that's coming back off of injury. Some of the workout videos he's posted, he's healthy. He's ready to go. You have Jermaine Burton, who's likely going to be the top playmaker of that group. So, I mean, you have a lot of weapons. Now you just got to say, hey, Todd Monken, do your thing, man. Let's go.
How comfortable is Monken working with tempo?
He loves it. That's kind of his thing.
Okay.
He did it at Oklahoma State. Not so much in the NFL, but that's a totally different beast. But
Yeah,
he did it at Southern Miss. He's scored and been successful in different ways. At Southern Miss, you had Ito Smith and Jalen Richard, so he was a lot of 20 and 21 personnel type stuff and put up big numbers. In the NFL, obviously that's a different deal. But with Oklahoma State, it was a lot of 10 personnel, so he knows how to win with different personnel groups. So that's good.
Okay, so last year was absolutely, I guess, on Kirby for slowing down the offense as it went.
It was on Kirby, and it was a little bit on the fact that they lost a lot of ground with COVID. They weren't able to have a normal offseason and installing everything like they normally would. They didn't have JT Daniels at the start of the year. I think he wasn't recovered all the way from his knee surgery, and he had some setbacks. And, when you start the year with Stetson Bennett, you're in a really tough spot there. So they were probably very limited in what they could do, what they had the ability to do. And then just a lot of factors. And then Kirby just still first-year coordinator, all those factors. He's probably like, okay, we just need to run the ball. And you get games like the 14-3 Kentucky game where it's just a snooze fest, and you're just like, man, we could have put a 50 spot on these guys, and we didn't. Then JT Daniels steps in and throw for 400 yards against Mississippi State in his first start, and then here we go. So I'm thinking with JT Daniels at the helm, you're going to see more of the latter half of Georgia's season where it was 400, 300 yards a game, and the average points per game went up by 10.
Well, now the next question is Georgia ready for what's coming up week 1? I mean, that's an unbelievable matchup.
Good Lord, yeah. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more difficult but electric atmosphere. I mean, it's a neutral site game in Charlotte, likely going to be full capacity now, which is outstanding. And you have a battle of two great quarterbacks, DJ Ongulale and JT Daniels. And it's going to be a showcase. And Clemson lost a lot with Amari Rodgers, Travis Etienne, and, of course, that guy named Trevor Lawrence, who, I don't know if you know anything about him. He's pretty good at football. But they lose a lot. He's
going to be Tebow's backup.
Yeah, he's going to be Tebow's backup down in Jacksonville. So that's good for the Titans. So I think, you're going to see two teams that have a lot of holes to fill. I mean, obviously the situation at Georgia with the receiving core is still not quite settled as to who's going to be the playmaker. So there's a lot of answers there. Same with Clemson. Is Justin Ross going to be the same? He's coming back. Is he going to be the same that he was? I think he will, but you never know with catastrophic knee injuries like that. You never know how people bounce back. It's different from person to person. But what we do know about Clemson is they're well coached. They recruit extremely well. And they're always going to be good from here on out as long as Dabo is still the head coach.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Now let's go up I-75 a little bit further into Knoxville, and let's talk about the 0-12 Vols. The Tennessee Vols.
Yes. Wow. They have some. I think they just got another transfer quarterback. I think they're trying to make a 53-man roster of just quarterbacks.
Well, they need to find one.
They need to find one. Eventually they will. But, you get the kid out of Michigan that transfers in. Where does he fit? I don't think he fits. They're going to end up going with Harrison Bailey after all of that's said and done. Hendon Hooker, I don't think is the right fit for what they do. Harrison Bailey's going to ultimately be the right fit. He's going to kind of be the next kind of Dylan Gabriel type quarterback. So they will have a good quarterback. They're not going to be able to protect him. They're not going to – I don't think they're going to have anybody to throw to, really. And then you lose Josh Gray to Oklahoma. So they're not going to be able to turn around and give it to anybody. They're going to be decimated. They're going to be bad. It's going to be bad. It's going to be rough in Knoxville, unfortunately, for Vol fans. It's going to be rough.
Yeah,
They
Jabari
they
Small is
lose.
going to be your starting running back. You've lost Ty Chandler and Eric Gray.
Yes, and Ty Chandler went to North Carolina, right?
Right.
That's a great fit for him. I
Yeah,
love that. I love that.
he's gonna put up pretty stupid numbers and probably get drafted fairly high. That was a good business.
That's a great
decision.
move for him. Great move for him. Mac Brown is doing a tremendous job at North Carolina. He's had a long way to go with roster management stuff, but I think they're nipping at the heels of Clemson. They're climbing. I think they're rising. So I'm not to say that this is the Around the ACC podcast, but I'm really impressed with what North Carolina brings to the table there. But back to Tennessee, I guess we have to downgrade. They're really the no-name SEC club. At least Vanderbilt has Ken Seals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have him. I don't know.
Which we are the head of the Ken Seals fan club, unabashedly. We really
you're
like
the president. You're the president. I'm the vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And
his dad follows me on Twitter.
That's right. Hey, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So Ken Seals, and you and your dad can listen to Around the SEC. Mm-hmm. You'll get plenty of I guess cheerleading. I guess you could say. But I mean, Vanderbilt has Ken Seals. He's proven. He knows. Like, he did well in a non-system. Like, Vanderbilt couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing last year. So, and Ken Seals actually played really well within that whatever
and
that they tried to call offense.
Such a great fit for whatever they're going to bring down from Notre Dame. It's going to be a lot of – I mean, it's going to be kind of back to what they did well under Franklin, I think, which is like heavy run, gap schemes, stuff like that, and play action off of it. I think they're going to – for them to try to be an air raid team is just completely irresponsible. But they're going to be – I mean, I think they're going to be obviously it's not going to translate into wins this year because it's Vanderbilt and they basically have no roster. But they're going to play a lot better this year. They're going to be a little more organized. You're going to see a more physical bunch at Vanderbilt. I can't say the same for Tennessee. This is going to sound weird, but they're going to look like Vanderbilt whenever they were scrappy. Mm-hmm. That's what they're going to look like this year. And people need to expect a lot of 1-2 score games against them and not too many 50 burgers put up.
No, I think the days of the 50 burger is gone. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be crazy. Like, you're going to say, wow, like, this Vanderbilt team is good. So.
Yeah. Now, they have a recruiting problem, and they're trying to fix that. They went out and hired Barton.
That's right. he's gonna start landing 5 stars there.
Yeah, I think they've never had a top 100 player go to Vanderbilt. Their top is 102. So the key is to find those guys that are willing to go to Nashville. And Nashville's a great town, and with Tennessee being down, now's the time to make the move.
Well, just just win Nashville first of all. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of like you go in a 45-minute radius of Davidson County. There's some good talent there. Like, Middle Tennessee's awesome. Like, go down to Rutherford County, win your private school circuit. Win those battles in Nashville. Start there before you do anything else. Lock down Nashville, and you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? At Vanderbilt, you're going to be okay. Like, when they were good, like they were scrappy, like they were winning a lot of battles in Nashville for players, right? You have your Cam Johnson, Jawan Williams, those types that were staying and going to Vanderbilt instead of leaving, going to LSU, Tennessee, Georgia, wherever. If they start winning Nashville, win Davidson County first, right? Win your county. Then win Williamson County. Win Rutherford County. And those that don't know Tennessee geography, those are Metro Nashville suburbs. So win the greater Nashville area and then branch out from there. Then you can start going down 65 into northern Alabama, start winning a few battles there. Then you could go north into Kentucky, win a few battles there. Then you go down I-24 to Chattanooga, go to Baylor, McCallie, win a few battles there, then go into North Georgia, and then work your way down to Atlanta.
And don't forget Memphis.
Yeah, go west.
Mm-hmm.
Go west. They're going to have to – I mean, unfortunately they're competing with Ole Miss for a lot of those kids probably. But
Tennessee surprisingly struggles in Memphis.
They do. They've never good. And for Tennessee, Josh Heupel's got to figure out a way to win I-40. he's got to win I-40, right? And then he's got to win I-75.
Yeah, he's got to establish some kind of a presence in Atlanta, and that's going to be so hard with Kirby. But Tennessee at its best is winning Atlanta.
Exactly, and that's going to be tough. But you have Rodney Gardner, so and Rodney Gardner is really good in Atlanta. So that's a huge plus for Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee's going to be down long because I am impressed with what Heupel was able to do in the spring. I was kind of impressed with what they kind of look like. They're going to, but they're just so decimated talent wise.
There's going to be a lot of 50 seconds 3 and outs and the defense thrown back on the field this year. That's what people need to expect this year in year one. The talent is just not there for what they want to do.
And their depth is not there at all. They have no depth.
It's a complete system change from what Jeremy Pruitt wanted to do to what Josh Heupel wants to do. Understand that and enjoy the 50 to 45 losses.
Yeah, and you understand that as well as complete system change and a complete roster overhaul with getting decimated in the transfer portal, even losing some of your big recruits. It's not a good look for Tennessee. But I say in about 3 years' time they'll be okay. They'll start to build back up and they'll start to get used to it. It's gonna be a rough road here.
Will Tennessee fans be patient enough to let
they better be
what needs to happen? Or are they just going to go down this never-ending circle of changing systems and changing coaches, and you can never get right?
Yeah, they better be patient. They haven't been patient so far, and look what it's got them since 2007.
Yeah,
nothing, right? So they need to be patient. So be patient. Let Josh Heupel do his thing. He's proven he can win, right? He goes to UCF, right? On the heels of Scott Frost, but we see how Scott Frost is doing it in Nebraska. For Tennessee fans, that's got to give you a little bit of nervous energy of Scott Frost was great at Central Florida, won a national championship, right?
By beating a 4-loss Auburn team or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. By being an uninterested Auburn team in a bowl game. But no, they it gives you pause to see Scott Frost struggling so mightily at Nebraska because that's kind of what Tennessee is right now. But I think Heupel's better than Frost at coaching. Frost was a better recruiter. I think Frost had the talent to win out. But I think Josh Heupel is a better coach. He did well as Missouri's offensive coordinator back in the early years of Drew Lock, where Missouri was just awesome, right? I think he was a coordinator when they won the East back-to-back years too. I believe so.
No, I do not believe he was. I think the coordinator then is the guy that went to Wyoming with the long hair. I don't know his name. Yeah,
but
Heupel,
right.
But Heupel, I think, was the replacement. I think he got there with Barry Odom.
I have to look that up, but I think you're right. You may be right.
Yeah, and it's really the Baylor system versus the Oregon system with Scott Frost and Josh Heupel. Which one is better? Which one has staying power? And it's looking like the Baylor system is winning out as the Oregon system is kind of going away.
Yeah, I think Scott Frost is trying to carry – I think Scott Frost is also trying to do square peg, round hole at Nebraska. Like, Nebraska's not built for that.
Yeah.
I think that's also part of his problem.
And he doesn't have the quarterback that he needs. He thought he did with Taylor Martinez, but he didn't have that guy.
No, exactly. And so I think he's knowing now he's struggling. He's like, man, I can't do what I want to do, and I'm not well versed in anything else. So, he's going to struggle a little bit, and he's got to he's going to have some things to figure out. I think the Baylor system is a little bit more of a universal fit. I think you can do more with different types of personnel. You saw that at Arkansas. It didn't translate into wins, unfortunately, but they were pretty dang good, right? Mm-hmm. You see it at Ole Miss with Jeff Lebby, right? With Matt Corral, we had written him off completely, right? We did this about a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, right, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
And we did this, and we were like, man, that's John Rice Plumlee, and then whoever else they recruit to be his backup. We didn't know Matt Corral was going to end up being one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. But you take a Baylor system, he fits really well into the Baylor system, the Art Briles system. And it's a little bit more of a universal fit. I think Harrison Bailey can be that guy for Tennessee, which is why I think Heupel is better than Frost. So Tennessee fans, at least be patient enough to give Frost a chance, not Frost, I'm sorry, to give Heupel a chance to do what he does, right? He's got energy. He's got juice, right? He's got way more juice than Scott Frost. Josh Heupel is also a national championship winning quarterback. He knows kind of what it looks like, right? He played at Oklahoma. He knows, like, he kind of knows. I don't know what he knows, but he knows more than Scott Frost. And I think if Tennessee fans are patient, it will pay off, right? And I think also if you want to look at a team that I think has improved drastically with a coach similar to Heupel, look at, and I know this is a different conference, but they had way worse roster problems. But Virginia, like the fact that Virginia played for an ACC championship year before last, right?
Yeah.
The fact they played for an ACC championship, they got smoked by Clemson, which that was to be expected. But Bronco Mendenhall inherited a team that was kind of like Vanderbilt in the ACC. And in 3 years, he had them in the ACC championship. So, and Bronco Mendenhall had tremendous success at BYU.
You know, I'm going to take us around the AAC for a second. How do you picture Dylan Gabriel and Gus Malzahn coexisting?
That's going to be interesting. I talked to my cousin, who's an analyst at Georgia now. He was the Mustard Buzzards offensive coordinator for a year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Buster Faulkner.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him, and he was like, Auburn. He told me Auburn made a mistake firing Gus Malzahn. He said Gus Malzahn's a great coach. Maybe not a great fit for Auburn and what they wanted to do, but I think he'll be a great fit at Central Florida with what he does. And to be honest with you, I think him and Gus will get along just great.
I just think with Gus Malzahn, his best team are with true dual threat quarterbacks like Nick Marshall or Cam Newton. That unlocked his offense.
I think Dylan Gabriel's more dual threat than you think.
When I watch him play, now this might be the Heupel system and it might change this year, but he looks statuesque.
He does. I think he's more athletic than people give him credit for. But Gus Malzahn, I think his ceiling is Group of Five. I think he'd be a great Group of Five head coach.
Okay.
And at a program like UCF, which they're already established, I think he'll come in and do really well. I mean, he's the only person that's been able to beat Saban consistently or fairly consistently. So I mean, there's something to that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll shut it off here for Around the SEC. That's a good half hour. We will come back and do another special, and then during the summer it will become a routine thing. So for Corey Burton, I'm Stephen Willis.